Let's go back to that Trump presser now and bring in Kate McKenna, who is listening in. And Kate, we heard the president mention the war's timeline and the inherent contradiction between this being potentially near the end of the war, but also that the United States is committed to fighting hard for as long as it takes. So help us kind of understand where things are at.
Well, I'm not sure I can, Ian. Just to be honest with you, what the president said kind of prompted more questions than he may have answered. He was asked directly when this war is going to end. He didn't directly answer that question, saying it would end very soon because of, in his words, the U.S. military's success hitting 5,000 targets, sinking the Iranian Navy, knocking out telecommunications and radar, and killing much of its leadership. He says that they are well ahead of their schedule. We know that initially he had estimated that this operation would last 4 to 5 weeks. And up until, very recently, his officials have said that they're just ramping up. So his plan's still quite unclear. But he did issue a bit of a veiled threat, saying that there are other potential targets that would take years to rebuild, but he doesn't want to hit them, seeming to hint to the Iranian regime that it's in their interest to find some way to peace. He also spoke in very bombastic terms about the U.S. military, calling the attack some of the most powerful and complex military strikes and maneuvers the world has ever seen. But the objectives are still a bit fuzzy. Trump has said that this war will be over when the Iranian regime wakes up and doesn't seek to start building a nuclear missile again. It's hard to know how he would make that judgment, and he didn't explain.
Yeah, it's really hard as you listen to these speeches, Kate, to figure out how much do you take seriously. Like, you mentioned the bombast, the exaggeration, describing this military operation, as you said, as unprecedented in terms of its success. I mean, clearly that's not the case. There have been some incredibly successful military campaigns before, but you have to try to sift through what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. And so to that point, this is the first time we've heard from him since Iran chose a new leader. What did he have to say about that?
Well, I just want to start in by saying that Donald Trump has said that regime change is not the main objective of this war. But repeatedly, he said he wants to see a different leader in place than the leader that has been chosen by the Iranian clerics. He refused to say that there is a target on the back of the new supreme leader, but says he was a bad choice. Essentially, he represents more of the same. He says he would have liked to have seen a president get installed instead, saying he wants an internal candidate and that he wants a similar model to what happened in Venezuela. And of course, we can recall that earlier this year, the Trump administration captured Nicolas Maduro and is now working with the new leader, Delcy Rodriguez. Take a listen to what he said.
I like the idea of internal because it works well. I mean, I think we've proven that so far in Venezuela. We have a woman, Delcy, who has been president of the country, very respected, she's doing a great job. I would like to see people that are inside go. Now, they talk about the son of the Shah, they talk about other people, but, hasn't been there in many, many years. We have a formula that's been very good so far, and I think it'll continue to be good. The relationship is extraordinary with Venezuela, smart country.
We do know, of course, though, that Israel, the U.S.'s partner in this operation, has said that there is a target on the new Ayatollah.
For many Americans, the price of oil is a key concern. And what did Trump have to say about that?
Well, we know that the cost of fuel has spiked in the U.S. because of this conflict, and it's affecting the ability of tankers to get through the Strait of Hormuz. So Trump is offering assistance to the U.S. Navy to get, offering the assistance of the U.S. Navy to get oil flowing again. Trump downplayed the surge in costs in his statement. He talked about how he says he always knew that this would affect the cost of oil. He claims that the cost has gone up probably less than he thought, even though the spike is being described as historic. And then he said, he didn't think they'd be successful so quickly, which is perhaps signaling to the market and investors that this is a short-term thing. But how short-term is really still unclear. As well, I want to mention, he was asked about the strike on a girls' school in Iran that killed more than 170 people. Some evidence reported in American outlets suggests that was a U.S. strike. Trump says he hasn't seen enough on this. He tried to imply it could have been the fault of Iran, and he says that there is an investigation underway.
Yeah, and interestingly, he was kind of called out by a reporter on that, saying, are you actually suggesting that a Tomahawk missile was fired by Iran on the first day of this conflict at a girls' school in their own country? And he kind of said, look, I don't know. So people can judge for themselves what he actually does believe happened. Kate McKenna, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's get some more analysis and reaction to what Donald Trump said and bring in Sam Benson, national politics reporter for Politico, and he is in Washington. Sam, thank you very much for speaking with us. What stood out to you about that news conference?
Well, Ian, thanks for having me. I think the first thing to point out is just the context of this. I mean, this press conference was occurring at what should have been the Republicans' annual policy conference, where they talk about the victories of legislation over the past year. They would talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill passed last year, which they, kind of market as their working families tax relief bill. That should have been the focus: the economy, affordability, getting ready for the midterms. And because of this ongoing war, that's the attention. That's what the American people are paying attention to. I mean, I've seen polling from the last week or so that shows the war is largely unpopular with the electorate at large. Of course, that changes with Republicans. But folks are paying attention to this. It's quickly surpassed affordability, the cost of living, and prices as the top issue for Americans. And when you have a party that's in power, that controls Congress, that controls the White House, and tries to defend that in less than 9 months in November's elections, this is a distraction that can certainly get in the way.
Kind of feel like there are at least three audiences that the president is speaking to. They're his hardcore supporters, which is still a pretty large group when you consider all the controversies that Trump has been embroiled in. You know, let's say it's 35% to 38% of the population. There are those people who steadfastly oppose him, so he's not going to convince them that he's doing the right thing no matter what he says. And then, of course, there's that key movable demographic in the middle. As you listen to Trump's answers, did you get any indication of how he's going to try to sell himself and this war effort to that group in the middle?
You know, the only instance I saw during his press conference of that was when he was talking about oil prices. I mean, he acknowledged, just as Kate just mentioned, that he knew before this war that oil prices were going to go up, and we've seen that. I mean, oil before a week and a half ago was trading at around $73 a barrel. Now it's north of 90, and so we've seen kind of clear ramifications in terms of prices. And when he was asked about it, he acknowledged that, and then said, "We're going to see it get down, and Americans are going to be okay." I'm paraphrasing. That was essentially the vibe. And I think that's an acknowledgement that Americans aren't happy with higher prices. They've known this. I mean, a lot of the electoral victories for Democrats in off-cycles elections late last year, and then we saw it in Texas this time, the message is affordability, 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 and that's what Democrats are going to go after Republicans on. And so if Trump wants to, access that middle swath of voters, that about 25 to 30% of the electorate that is movable, it can't be trying to sell them on war in the Middle East. It has to be something to do with their pocketbook, cost of living. That's just how elections in the United States go. And Republicans know that, and that has to be the message.
There is a lot of reporting, including from the United States, that missile strike on the girls' school that killed students originated with the United States. So let me at least say that reporting suggests that, if not more strongly. How much does that matter, do you think, to the American average voter?
Well, the interesting part of that is the disconnect between the president and some of his top advisors and members of his cabinet. When he was asked about it yesterday, the day before, he and Pete Hegseth gave different answers. Then, of course, today he's kind of contradicting some of the reports and the things that we've seen in the media. That tracks with other kind of differences in messaging. He acknowledged today that one of the goals of this war in Iran is regime change. His Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, over and over has talked about kind of the focus, sees, and goals in Iran, and has not included regime change in his kind of descriptions. And so I think this is just another instance that Americans are seeing the president and some of his top advisors and members of his cabinet being on different pages of what the long-term goal is. And then, of course, I think when you see civilians losing their lives, people dying, that's not going to bode well for a lot of American voters.
Sam Benson with Politico. Thank you very much.
Thank you.